So thanks everybody for joining today. We're excited to have you here for the latest installment of the Userback webinar series. This time we're talking about harnessing real-time insights and how enhancing your feedback with targeted and relevant templates can help you gain more insights and build better products. My name is Matthew Keir. I'm the marketing director here, and I'm excited to welcome everybody. I'm joined today by my colleague, Daniel Ray. So Daniel is the Customer Success Manager here at Userback. He's been with the business for a number of years and has been at the forefront of dealing with our users and helping them deliver winning solutions. So Dan, great to have you here. Excited to hear what you've got to say on the topic.
Thanks for the intro, Matt. Really excited to be on here with you and to talk about widget templates. For those that haven't met me, my main role is really about success or our customers' success. We're really dedicated, or I'm really dedicated to transforming feedback collection from really a chore to a strategic asset for your business. So how do we do that? Well, we've implemented something called widget templates. It's going to give you ease of use when implementing Userback. You're going to have much more targeted feedback in regards to use cases. We're going to look at the versatility of the widget itself, and you're going to see higher engagement with more relevant questioning and more relevant content. So yeah, expect to see some real world examples, and I'm excited to take you through it. Before we jump straight into looking at the feature itself, I wanted to briefly touch on, I guess, some of the pain and what we've discovered, or where we've discovered the necessity of creating something like widget templates, because it wasn't always there. We've had the widget for a few years now, and the widget templates has only come up fairly recently. What sparked it was, aside from customer feedback, it's from ourselves. Mostly ourselves, rather. So we needed a way to create widgets quickly under specific use cases, and then we started to feel the specific pain around not having widget templates. I guess the first thing we identified was that the standard feedback, or that generic feedback form, is one size fits all, and it doesn't quite work for all use cases. What that means is the feedback itself can be slightly irrelevant, and it doesn't have enough insight to the questions and the outcomes that you're looking for. So whilst it's always good to have a feedback form itself, having a generic feedback form won't always get you the outcomes that you need. That second point that you can see in front of you, slow feedback loop. So adding on to the generic feedback form, if you don't get that answer right the first time, likely you're going to go back and ask for a follow-up question. So to get that original outcome, you now got a back and forth conversation and relying on that customer or that user replying. That's a slow process. So again, having a widget template, I believe, is really going to enable you to speed up that communication by getting all of that context from the first submission or feedback response. That last thing I wanted to cover was capturing context. So I did mention context itself, but it is a real challenge to understand the exact user experience. It means that it's a bit less effective in A, problem solving, and B, understanding where that customer is actually coming from. So I really look forward to showing you how Userback can really help with these problems. The last pain I would cover, and I think it's the main benefit of widget templates, is targeting specific use cases. So without having an understanding of what the widget should look like and the outcome that you're looking to get to. So again, let me just rephrase. You understand the outcomes that you want, but you don't know exactly what the widget should look like. That's what we're going to show you today, and that's one of the other core benefits of widget templates. So let's move on.
I think they're all good points, Dan. I think you mentioned there that we took the lessons from our own business to develop a lot of these, right? As a growing sort of SaaS organization, we face a lot of the challenges that, I suspect people on this webinar are also feeling, whether they're web agency trying to build fast for their clients, or whether they're fellow SaaS superstars and trying to build and grow their own SaaS business. The rate of change, the rate of development, those fast release cycles, really means you've got to act promptly, right? So your feedback loop has to be super fast to maintain that. There's no point in getting your user insights from 6 months ago after you've already made 4 or 5 major changes through product or design, where all that becomes redundant. You kind of just end up stopping doing it, right? And so the fact that we've experienced that and we've built something where you can deploy it super fast and collect super fast means that you can gather and harness those insights and actually use them in a forward-looking context rather than sort of trying to look through the rearview mirror, right? So I think what you touched on is really hyper important.
I missed the quick implementation thing, and I actually think that should be sitting at the top. So time to value, getting a widget up and running, that should have been at the top.
I'm here to help.
Lots of pain here, but obviously I think I missed that key core one. So thank you, Matt, for bringing that up. But and I'm sure you've got your own pains for everyone watching, and I'm sure the widget templates is going to ideally solve a few of those that we haven't thought of as well.
Indeed, and I'll add in here now that as we're talking about these pain points and any others, if you've got thoughts or ideas on your own pains and you want to ask questions around that, drop it into the chat. Don't wait till the end. We want to answer as many questions as we can. So just because we've named 3 or 4 here doesn't mean that there aren't another dozen or so floating out there that people are experiencing. So we want to understand those and we want to help you solve those. So drop it in the chat and we'll tackle those at the end.
Good one. Exactly. Thanks, Matt. So let's actually look at widget templates itself. So just as a quick summary, we are going to look at UserBack. We are going to jump into UserBack itself, and I'm going to show you how it all works and what templates we have. But I just want to preface, I want to tell you some of the benefits that you're going to receive by using something like widget templates with UserBack. So the first thing, quick and hassle-free setup. That was Matt's key point. That was Matt's key pain that he mentioned just previously. Being able to quickly jump into UserBack as a new user. Perhaps UserBack's been given to you by a colleague after procurement, and you basically just need to get it up and running. Depending what outcome you're looking to achieve, this is going to make it super, super quick. That next one, targeted. And we're not just targeting specific users, or that's not what I'm talking about when I say targeted. It's the specific use cases, giving you meaningful insights. So with widget templates, you're going to get specifically designed examples for specific feedback outcomes. So targeting or specifically targeted use cases, I would say, is a really core benefit here. Versatility. These widget templates, they're adaptable across screen sizes. So the first thing, or one of the questions that you might actually have is this going to work on a mobile device? Whilst limited to web, it's absolutely going to be flexible. It doesn't matter what template it is. UserBack is 100% responsive. So if you want to ensure that it's meeting your customers visually and user experience-wise across your various views, tablet, desktop, mobile, we've got you covered. It's absolutely adaptable. Another core benefit that we've noticed, so this is a specific outcome that we've noticed. It wasn't really our target, or it wasn't really the outcome we were chasing, but after using dedicated templates for specific feedback types we were looking to collect, and what I mean by that is installing potentially, using a widget template on our support docs, for example. I'm going to show you that shortly. We've seen a massive uptick in feedback participation. So again, something that we probably should have considered beforehand, or something that I should have considered, but a higher engagement has been absolutely massive for me. So I think that's just by making it super easy. Having it specifically targeted questions in the right spot means that it's making it super easy for people to give that feedback, and it's just gone up. So yeah, let's take a look. Unless, Matt, there's anything else you wanted to cover before we jump into.
I was just going to touch on that engagement piece and how much of a struggle historically it's been, right? So when you're sending out your emails and you're trying to get responses, and in a technology industry that has somewhere between a 1.5 and a 2.7 email response rate, it's incredibly low. So you're trying as best as you can to leverage some of those kind of legacy feedback tools like email and spreadsheets and things that weren't designed for the purpose at all. Being able to move into something like this quick, easy, affordably, really changes the game for how much engagement you actually get around these things. And you can have the best scripted question in the world, but if nobody bothers to see it, answer it, respond to it, it's a bit of a moot point, right?
Again, that was something else I probably should have mentioned in here as well, but the engagement size, why was the engagement side important? Because we were able to draw real conclusions and not just drawing those conclusions from small sample sizes. Getting 5 feedback responses about something and then just making a really hard decision about it, I don't think is smart. So that higher engagement or higher feedback participation is going to give you a bigger sample size. It's going to get your outcomes to be more accurate and based on fact, as opposed to those
work.
Sentiment.
Absolutely. Love it.
Let's jump into an actual demo. So I'm just bringing up UserBack now. Here we go. So what I'm hoping to show you is utilizing widget templates inside UserBack. So what I've done is I've opened UserBack on the widget page. How did I get here? Well, after logging into UserBack, I clicked the widget button at the top. It then took me to the edit widget page. Just keep in mind that you will need to click edit widget because applying a template does require you to edit the widget that you currently have. It does highlight the opportunity, or it does highlight that I should mention there's two ways to leverage widget templates. The first one is by creating a new project. That's really simple. You go back to the UserBack project page by clicking the logo and just click new, create a project. The first thing it's going to ask you to do is select a relevant template relative to the use case that you're looking to solve. So the second way to do it is exactly what I'm showing you now, is inside the widget editor itself. On the top left, you've got a templates button. So you can already see the widget template I have. I've got the general feedback option active. I've got bug active and idea active. And I've also inserted a logo as well. What I'm going to do is click templates because I've now discovered the generic feedback form that I have here, or the generic widget, isn't fitting the use case that I need. What I do need is for when people to click the feedback button, I need it to ask them specifically about their experience. So I'm not looking to collect bugs. I'm not looking to collect ideas. I'm trying to understand the experience that they've had. And I think stars would be a really good representation of that. So what I'm going to use is the user acceptance testing template, so the UAT template. And now you're going to get an idea that we actually have named our different templates in line with the specific outcome. So CES, CSAT as well. So again, those are going to start ringing bells or dinging bells for people in their head that know what those terms are. So using the user acceptance template, all I have to do is hover over the one that I want to use and click use. Once I do that, it immediately applies to, it overwrites basically what I had on the page. I still need to click Save Changes, but I think the obvious point is how easy that actually was. All I did was click Templates, I selected the most relevant one, clicked Apply, and we're done. So what I'll do here is I'll click Save Changes, and again, just before I click Save Changes, I do want to highlight that you can customize these templates further. For example, if I wanted to edit that question, I can say, rather than how would you rate your experience, I could say time on this site, okay? So still pretty much the same, but it's more, the wording is more targeted to the outcome that I'm looking for. So whilst our templates are still there to use, tweaking them towards the specific outcome is still recommended.
And Dan, if my web application was a green one, for example, I may not want to display a blue banner, etc., right? So there is the additional option to change your appearance, even though you've got your foundational template, that you can take that next step as well, as not just a bit of text, but also that look and feel to be brand relevant.
And I'll show you that quickly because that's a really good point. We call that the highlight color. So by changing this highlight color, you're adapting the buttons, the header, and of course, well, actually both buttons, which I did kind of highlight. But as I hover over these different colors, you can see what's being applied there. So the entire highlight or accent is changed, exactly what you were just talking about. You can also change the icon as well and add additional fields. This isn't a session about customizing the widget, but I still think super relevant. If, for example, I didn't want to use stars, what if it was more relevant for me to use faces instead, or numbers, or maybe thumbs up or thumbs down? Considering the question, I think numbers might be a relevant alternative. So how would you rate your time on the site? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then click save, and that's what the widget will look like. So I can show you that in practice. I'll jump on to the UserBack demo page. So this is just a make-believe fake dashboard we've created just to show the widget in action. You'll see the blue widget off to the right. I'll refresh the page, and then you'll see a slight change. You'll see that it's now that navy blue. I'm slightly colorblind, so I shouldn't actually be mentioning colors by name, but the color has changed, I know that much. And then of course the widget pop-up itself has completely changed. So now we've got the number rating, we've got the question that we've tailored, and of course it's got all the options that I saw in the template itself, ready to go. So I think from start to finish, I think without all the talking, I think that's about a 10 to 15 second process once you're in UserBack. super quick, as you highlighted before.
Yeah, great combination of having those guardrails up in the starter template to get you going super fast, but also, a really easy customization ability to layer over the top of that. So you can have your widget up and going in under 60 seconds, really, if you want to really click and type fast. Takes no time at all.
Absolutely. And what I'm going to show you is the what that actually looks like. So I've submitted some feedback. Here it is. And there we go. So you saw the comment that I entered. We have user identification enabled provided by the JavaScript SDK. So it automatically identified me as a user. It's got all the sufficient context in the background because remember, we are an incredibly high context feedback platform. We've just asked a simple question, but it's not just about that question we've asked. We're taking a lot of feedback, or rather a lot of context in the background, as long as it's enabled. In terms of the star rating, or the number rating rather, you can see that here at the top. So super easy to make the change, super easy for that user to provide that specific targeted feedback, and then super easy for me to come in and review once it's been received. So all around, super quick process. I think it's something that everyone should look at.
Agreed.
One of the other things I wanted to show you is some of this in the wild, okay? So what the widget might look like if you're applying a specific use case for, a specific page. The example I've got in front of me is the user-back support docs. So this is the example I mentioned before. We've implemented the feedback button on our support documents to help us get an idea of the quality of our documents from a user perspective. Of course, we might have a couple of spelling mistakes get picked up, but the context itself, where it didn't quite make sense to the user, that's why we've really put that here. So when someone clicks feedback, the first thing it's going to ask is the different smiley faces. So a really small survey. I can say I was a bit ambivalent about the whole thing. I can enter my email and say there is a spelling mistake, and then I can highlight the specific spelling mistake there. Now that that's complete, you can see the benefits of just having a dedicated widget template, straight to the point of whatever the outcome that the person who implemented it, what they were looking for. Hopefully I've worded that correctly, but I'm sure it all makes sense.
I think so. And you're also, just from seeing that from the user's perspective, it's effortless, right? You're trying to remove as much friction from your own user's perspective. So it's one thing to be able to set it up and capture information fast, but you need to make the experience good for the submitter as well, right? At the end of the day, it's not really your user's responsibility to provide this type of insight, even though it's critical for business success. So the easier you can make that, the more frictionless you can make that. Firstly, the more you're going to be able to capture and collect, but also, you're going to be able to keep those users happier as they go through that process.
Yeah, once again, covered a key point, higher participation. If anyone's really thinking about how they can get that higher participation or higher feedback rate, this is the point, is that making it super simple is going to make that, is going to lift that metric. The harder you make it, or the more confusing you make it, expect to see less feedback. So again, targeted widgets are the answer to higher participation, in my eyes anyway, and from the examples and outcomes we've seen. So,
yep. Well said.
Coming in with the great points, Matthew, really. So let's jump back into the slide deck itself and just proceed to that next slide. So the new user back paradigm. So just a quick recap. Those generic forms we're doing away with. We're now auto-generating use case specific forms. So doing away with just those basic 3-question example feedback forms or widget forms that we've given you, and now you're auto-applying or auto-generating use case specific widgets. That second one, slow feedback loop. Whilst you're already covered the pain, it's going to give you a beautiful home for that feedback. So that feedback loop is going to be sped up because you're going to get that context from the original submission, and using user-back is going to help speed up that assignment. It's going to help with tracking and closing out that feedback loop as a whole. So whilst widget templates are important for speeding up that feedback loop, user-back and utilizing user-back as a whole as part of the process is what's going to give you that 2 times closure rate, or speed rate of closure rather. Number 3, lack of context. So combining user responses with session replay. This is really cool. So for those that have looked at UserBack, we do have a session replay function. How does it relate to widget templates and collection? It relates because if enabled, when someone provides their feedback, it's going to have a session replay attached. Whilst they can give you sentiment, maybe a happy or unhappy face, understanding the context of why they've submitted it is really important. Can you always rely on what someone says to back up how they're actually feeling? Not always, especially the salesman in the room. You know, one thing that you're told is not going to be the same thing of what is actually the use case. And actually that might apply to any role in any business. But that lack of context is now going to be elevated, attaching a session replay. You're going to have a full action replay attached to a very small targeted survey. So you're going to get the outcome or the answer that you need, and it's going to be heavily backed up by something visual you can watch and replay and hopefully understand further why they've submitted it.
Indeed. I think that that can speed up the exploration process, right? You don't necessarily have to set up one-on-one interviews to understand why somebody scored you at a low rate, right? So you can jump straight into a session replay for Daniel that scored, you know, my page a 1 out of 5 there, and I can look at his session replay immediately, say, right, you know, there was 4 or 5 bugs on this page, and I can understand it, and we can skip the need for an hour-long, you know, process of trying to run down somebody and set up a one-on-one interview to understand why that detractor, you know, gave me a hard time. We jump straight into it. So I think that's being able to combine those is really powerful for businesses.
Perfect. I'm just thinking about that email that goes out. We would like to deep dive into the feedback that you've given us. Let's organize a 1-hour session to go through why you've provided it. And I know that person's thinking, don't you have the ability to see errors in your own product? The answer is not a lot of people do. So getting that live action replay of what happened, maybe it wasn't even a bug, maybe it was a misinterpretation, but you're going to know, and that's what's important.
Yep, agreed.
Q&A session.
Absolutely. So I think I can take this one, Dan.
Please.
The instruction there, or the request, was that if we thought of any use cases, any ideas, any problems, that we drop them in. I saw a few come in and a few duplicates as well. So we'll be able to knock them over. If there's any others that you want to ask while we're going through these, please don't hesitate. Chuck them in the chat there in the Q&A section, and we'll be able to get to the bottom of each and every one of those, I hope. So we've got plenty of time. We do want to get out of here on time. We promised to keep these sessions to below half an hour, so we're going to endeavour to do that. So with that being said, and having stalled enough to let some people furiously type their questions in, I'm sure we can get going on this. I've got the first 3 questions in a row being asked here are whether we're going to share the slides. So we can nail all those down together, and the answer is yes, we will be sharing these slides. Anybody on the call today will be able to keep an eye on the email, and the inbox will share that with you through that means. Moving on to the next one here. Can I create my own templates within UserBack?
Good question. At this stage, you don't have the ability, rather, to create your own template and save it. However, we do have the ability to duplicate a project. So if you did want to utilize a widget from a different project, you can just copy the project. Super simple.
I think we showed how fast it was to actually create one. The need to go through and template them is pretty minimal in terms of selecting a template and then customizing it. Exactly. You know, it's a sub 2-minute job. There's not many things in business that are sub 2-minute jobs. So hopefully that's not too big an issue for the individual that asked that one. The second question is, can different projects have different widgets? We talked about projects there a couple of times, and you demonstrated or almost demonstrated in our demo there how you would jump back in and create a new project to set that. So can different projects have different widgets?
That's a good question. So yeah, you can have a different widget for each project. We really designed projects as a way to separate feedback types and to separate users, whilst it's still possible to move feedback between projects. That's kind of what we envisioned you'd use projects for. So having a different widget targeting a different use case over a different project. So great question.
Okay. Here's one that is around a single project, I believe. So can I target when a feedback or survey widget launches, or is it always on every page?
The targeting options inside UserBack are pretty good. You do have the ability to target on specific URLs. For example, if you only wanted the widget to show perhaps on the checkout page itself, you might know that your widget URL has /checkout. So by adding that to the widget editor under the targeting options, you're going to ensure that that button is specifically only showing on that page. So if you wanted to create multiple projects on multiple widgets, multiple projects, multiple outcomes, you can use targeting to ensure this installed on the same site, but they're different widgets targeting specific outcomes or dedicated outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's an important one where we can create, if you use an e-commerce website, for example, having a project set up for your product pages and serving a specific widget about how they're engaging in that part of their user journey, and then setting up your secondary project to understand the checkout and the buying behavior at the back end. Classic examples for how you might have two different widgets, running on a website, an e-com site, a web app, to be able to understand different stages of a customer's journey, right? And help improve your UX. Okay, we talked about surveys a little bit. Here's one on the classic survey. I didn't see NPS in your widget survey templates. Can I use UserBack for NPS?
Good and very good question.
Indeed.
Your very bold, blunt answer. End of January, expect to see some major leveled up changes to our surveys specifically. It's not going to be a small change. I would recommend going and checking out the UserBack website and jumping on the survey feature page. That's going to give you a bit of a walkthrough on what to expect. We also have a survey on that page that you can fill in to make sure that we've understood your use cases and outcomes as we're developing it. But again, that bold answer, one-liner in January.
Yes. So we're going to level up all of our survey capabilities and our session replay capabilities, and take the ability to sort of gather that feedback, segment, and understand the user sentiment and behaviors. That's going to the next level. We've got it slated for release in January, so keep your eyes peeled. I think, Dan, before we send the slide deck out, we might drop a link to that page so the folks don't have to go exploring.
Yeah, perfect.
And then they'll be able to check that page out, and hopefully anybody that visits that page will take that survey for us, and you can help us influence the next iteration of user surveys to make sure that we can give you the best outcomes for your business and what you're trying to do. So there's an opportunity for you to shape surveys as well. Great question. Everybody wants to do NPS, right? That's kind of, it's the bread and butter of project management, understanding user sentiment and the Net Promoter Score, and understanding those detractors and the advocates throughout a business. The ability to run those repeatably, quickly, within the sort of the release cycles that your business has is a classic use case, right? So expect to see some really strong performance around that from UserBack very soon.
And the other reason is because we also need it as well. So again, eating our own dog food is a feature that we wanted specifically, our customers are asking for. So yeah, that's it.
We actually do listen, I promise.
Yeah.
So if you want to fill that out. It's a good example of us, listening to what people are saying in the UserBack feature portal and other places, and we take action. So please jump on, have a look, explore, experiment, and give us your feedback. That'd be amazing.
Beautifully said.
Dan, I don't see any others coming through at the moment, so I'll give everybody one last chance to drop one in, and I'll stall for a little bit of time here by thanking Dan for his time on today's session and explaining a little bit about templates, how they might be able to help fast-moving business, tailor their feedback solution and gather better context for their individual use cases. So, Dan, I appreciate you sort of, coming in, giving us some insights on the common problems that we hear from our user base, as well as taking us through that short demo just to demonstrate how easy it was.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. I really feel like this subject, or rather this webinar series, is something that I'm super passionate about. My volume gets a bit louder, my cadence and talking gets a little bit quicker, so hopefully you could all understand. But really, if anyone wanted to reach out to me personally, just know that it would be well received. I look at feedback and surveys all day across various industries, across various customers. I would love to impart what is successful to them. And that's really what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do as part of this webinar series, is impart some success that we've seen onto you and the features that we're developing with UserBack. So thanks for having me, Matt.
No problem. And Dan's email is on the slide there on the screen, you can see. So if you've got one-on-one questions you want to explore a little bit deeper with Dan, get in touch. We're happy to talk. So, Dan, I haven't seen anything else come through, so let's wrap this one up. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.